You know that feeling when you check your bank account and instead of closing the app immediately because you're scared, you actually smile? It's that moment when you stop doing mental math to see if you can afford a cup of coffee or if buying groceries means you'll have to eat cheap noodles for the rest of the week. There is a very specific number where this feeling changes, and it isn't what most people think. Most financial experts will tell you that you need $1 million to be wealthy or that 6 figures is the magic goal, but they are missing something very important. There is a much smaller goal that completely changes how you feel about money. Once you hit this number, everything changes. That number is $20,000. My name is Anonymous, and I spend a lot of time thinking about money, how our brains work with money, and why some people build wealth easily while others stay stuck in the same bad patterns for years. If you want to understand how wealth actually works, instead of just hoping for the best, make sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if it helps you see things differently. Now, before we talk about why $20,000 is the real turning point, let me ask you a question. When you think about building wealth, what do you see? Maybe you imagine a rich kid who never had to work, or maybe you imagine someone working a hard job for 50 years, slowly saving $1 at a time. The truth is that building wealth doesn't work the way most people think it does. Here is what really happens. There are certain financial levels that act like invisible walls. Once you cross them, the rules of the game change completely. $20,000 is the first big wall that separates people who will build real wealth from those who will spend their whole lives living paycheck to paycheck. The crazy part is that most people don't even know this level exists. Think about it like this. If you've ever tried to push a heavy rock up a steep hill, you know that getting it to start moving is the hardest part. You are pushing, sweating, and making almost no progress. You might even wonder if it's possible. But once you get it to the very top of the hill, something amazing happens. The rock starts moving faster, and soon it rolls down the other side almost by itself. $20,000 is that point where your money finally reaches the top of the hill. Everything before this point feels like you are fighting against gravity. Everything after this point feels like gravity is helping you. But here is the really interesting part that might surprise you. The difference isn't just about the math. It's not just that you have more money to invest. The real change happens inside your brain. When you don't have any money saved, your brain stays in survival mode. This is a scary way to live. Every decision you make about money is based on fear and being worried that there isn't enough. You take the first job offer you get, even if it's a bad job, because you can't afford to wait. You stay in situations you hate because leaving feels too dangerous. You say yes to things you don't want to do because you desperately need the cash. This isn't just about being responsible. When you're in survival mode, your brain physically cannot think about growth or the future. It's like trying to plan a vacation while your house is on fire. Your mind is too busy dealing with the immediate danger to think about anything else. But something incredible happens when you cross that $20,000 mark. Suddenly, your brain has the space to think differently. Instead of asking, how do I survive until next Friday, you start asking, how can I make this money grow? Instead of just reacting to every money problem that pops up, you start planning ahead to build wealth. Research shows that having just $2,000 in an emergency fund increases your financial happiness by 21%. That's a small amount, less than what many people spend on a fancy laptop. But that small cushion creates a huge mental shift because it starts to pull you out of survival mode. When you grow that savings to cover 3 to 6 months of your bills, which is usually around $20,000, your well-being goes up even more. But more importantly, you have created enough breathing room for your brain to focus on building wealth instead of just trying to stay alive. Now, let's look at the math, because this is where it gets exciting. Let's say you save $1,000 every month and earn 8% return on your investments. Getting to your first $20,000 takes about 19 months of hard work and discipline. That's about a year and a half of saying no to things you want right now. It isn't easy, and most people give up before they get there. But here is the part that will surprise you. Your second $20,000 doesn't take another 19 months. It only takes about 17 months. Why? Because now you have that first $20,000 working for you. It is earning its own interest while you continue to add your monthly savings. You did the same amount of work and saved the same amount of money, but you finished 2 months faster just because you already had a foundation. This is the power of compound interest starting to work. By the time you're working on your third $20,000, the time gets even shorter. Your money starts doing more of the work so you don't have to. When you get to really big numbers, the speed is almost hard to believe. Once you have $400 $400,000 invested, you can make your next $20,000 in just 5 months. The same amount of money that took you 2 years to save at the beginning now happens automatically while you sleep. The first milestone feels impossible, but every one after that gets easier and easier. You might think that rich people have access to secret investments that regular people can't use. While there are some special deals for the ultra-rich, that isn't what makes the $20,000 rule work. The real secret is just simple math. If you invest $1,000 and it grows by 10%, you make $100. That's nice, but it doesn't change your life. But if you take that same 10% growth and apply it to $20,000, you make $2,000. Now we're talking about real money. When you have $20,000 earning 8% a year, that is $1,600 entering your account without you doing any work at all. That is money you didn't have to trade your time for. Your strategy doesn't have to be complicated. You can use the same simple funds as everyone else. The only difference is the amount of money you have, and that amount turns small wins into life-changing progress. But here is the point most people miss, and it might be the most important part of this video. When you save $20,000, you have done something much more valuable than just putting money in a bank. You have actually retrained your brain. You have built the most important habit you will ever have. Think about what it really takes to save $20,000 if you start with nothing. Unless you have a giant salary or live for free, this takes a lot of discipline. You had to watch where every dollar went. You had to say no to things you wanted. You had to stop yourself from buying every shiny new thing you saw. Most importantly, you had to do this every day for months or years. You proved to yourself that you are in charge of your money instead of your money being in charge of you. You became a person who can wait for a bigger reward later instead of needing a small reward right now. This change in who you are is huge. Before you had $20,000, buying a $4 coffee might have made you worry if you could afford it. After you hit $20,000, you don't worry about the small stuff as much because you know you have the big things under control. There's another mental shift that happens too. You start seeing opportunities instead of just problems. When you live paycheck to paycheck, a broken car is a disaster. It ruins your whole month. But when you have $20,000, a broken car is just an annoyance. It's something you can fix and move on from. Even better, you start to notice ways to make more money. Maybe a friend starts a business and needs a small investment. Before, you wouldn't have even thought about it. Now you can actually consider it. Maybe a great deal on a house comes up. Now you have the money to take advantage of it. This is what people mean when they say it takes money to make money. It's not a conspiracy. It's just that having cash gives you the ability to say yes to good deals. This also changes how you feel about your job. If you have no savings, you are trapped. If your boss is mean or the job is terrible, you have to stay because you need the money to pay rent. You can't ask for a raise because you are afraid of getting fired. But $20,000 is walking away money. You could quit tomorrow and be fine for months while you look for a better job. This gives you power. You can be more confident and ask for what you deserve because you're not desperate. When you act more confident, people usually treat you better and give you more opportunities, which helps you make even more money. But here is where most people fail. They hit $20,000 and then immediately spend it. They buy a new car or go on a big vacation because they feel like they earned it. Don't do this. That $20,000 is not a prize to be spent. It is the foundation for your whole future. It is the seed that will grow into a fortune if you leave it alone. The average person spends more on their car over their life than it would take to be completely retired and free. Between payments, insurance, and gas, most people spend $600 to $800 a month on a car. Over 40 years, that's $400,000. People say they can't afford to save, but they are spending a fortune on something that loses value every day. When you have $20,000, you start to see things differently. You stop asking, can I afford the monthly payment? And you start asking, what is this really costing me in the long run? You realize that a $30,000 car actually costs you much more because that money could have grown into $200,000 over 20 years if it was invested. Driving a used car doesn't feel like a sacrifice anymore. It feels like a smart choice that is buying your freedom. $20,000 won't make you rich today, but it will change how you think. It is the difference between just trying to get by and actually building a life you want. Start building that foundation today because your future self is waiting for you to make this move. Trust me, you will be very glad you did.